Hello once again and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be tackling the topic of phrasal verbs. This is a relatively advanced topic and it's something that if you're maybe at an intermediate level of English, you can focus on adding into your language, which can really then push you on to sounding more like a native speaker, having a more advanced level and communicating better in English overall. So first things first, what's a phrasal verb? It's when you take a normal verb and you add a particle. The particle, it's either a preposition or an adverb. Let's look at the verb to take as an example. So I'm sure you know the meaning of the verb to take. If you don't know the meaning of the verb to take, then this video is probably not for you. Check out one of our other videos on the channel. This is more for people who are already at an intermediate level. So if you take the verb to take and you add a particle, for example, off, to take off. For example, to take off your shoes, to take off your jacket. And in this context, the verb doesn't mean take anymore. It now means to remove. And this is typical with phrasal verbs, is you often have a synonym. So to take off and remove are synonyms in this context. To remove your shoes, to take off your shoes. But a native speaker is probably more inclined to use the phrasal verb. And I find that normally it's easier for learners of English to use the synonym. Maybe it's more similar in their language if they're speaking a European language, or it's maybe simpler because you just have one word instead of this combination of two words. It's a more difficult concept. So here, the idea, if you want to sound more like a native speaker, is to try and use the phrasal verb instead of the synonym. Now, if you use the remove, we completely understand what you mean, it's correct, etc. But as I said, if we're aiming at sounding more like a native speaker and to be more comfortable and more natural when speaking English, it's good to try and incorporate some of these phrasal verbs. Another point on phrasal verbs is that in different contexts, they can have different meanings. So again, with the verb to take off, you've probably heard this before with an aeroplane, to take off. The aeroplane would take off at 9 o'clock this morning. And here it means to depart, it's the synonym. But nobody really says to depart. The plane departs at 9 o'clock. It's not very common. Everybody says to take off. So there are some contexts where the synonym's a bit strange and almost everybody uses the phrasal verb. So you have to use it in some contexts. So here context is key, and it's only by the context you really know the difference in meaning of the phrasal verb. So once again, it's a complex topic, but what we need to do in order to make it more accessible for you is to try and break it down. There are thousands, literally thousands of phrasal verbs in English. You can buy a book dedicated just to learning phrasal verbs if you're really, really motivated. But in my experience, because it's a tricky topic, the easiest way to learn these is to try and break it down and to try and select some that you think you can use on a daily basis and then make a proactive effort in your language, in your emails or spoken language to try and actively incorporate these into your language and replace the synonyms that you probably use with the phrasal verbs. So the purpose of this video is to give you my top 8 phrasal verbs that I think, particularly in a business context, you can use to sound more business-like, more fluent, and more like a native speaker. So, number 1 on the list, it's a phrasal verb which I think native speakers use all day, every day, throughout the day, and it's to deal with. So, to deal with, again, in different contexts, it has different meanings, but in a business context, the most common meaning, I think, is probably as a synonym for to manage a problem. To address a problem, you could sometimes say to, but manage is probably the synonym that most people use. So each time I'll give you an example with the synonym and then show you how you can replace it with the phrasal verb. So the example with manage. Who is managing the supply chain issue? So here we can replace manage with deal with. So who is dealing with the supply chain issue? As always, my objective here is to try and boost your sentences to sound more like a native speaker. And if you use deal with in this context, you've done the job. You're certainly on the right track. So deal with, again, you can use in many different contexts. Here we're focusing on managing a problem. So instead of managing a problem, you can replace it there with deal with in your future emails, conversations, etc. Number 2 on the list is carry out. A synonym I would say is to perform or to execute. And if you work in a business context, for me, you can use carry out in so many different contexts. You can use it to say to carry out an intervention, to carry out an audit, to carry out an inspection, to carry out analysis, to carry out a survey. It's really, this just a few examples of a very long list of where you can use this word. I find that my students overuse the word perform. So really, if you use the word perform a lot in your English, try and replace it with carry out. Honestly, it'll sound much better. An example for you here. We perform rigorous quality checks on all our products. So we replace perform with carry out. We carry out rigorous quality checks on all our products. Right, number 3, it's the phrasal verb to draw up. So to draw, I'm sure you know the verb to draw. If you add up, we change the meaning. It means to write or prepare a written document. I've been asked to write a report on our Q1 sales performance. So here, write can be replaced with draw up. I've been asked to draw up a report on our Q1 sales performance. It's as easy as that. You can really just replace these words. So here, try and use these as references to come back to and focus on these 8. Get these 8 into your vocabulary. Number 4, a very, very common one is to figure out. And figure out, it means to understand a problem. Sometimes to solve a problem too. Depends on the context. The example I'll give you here, we need to understand how we're going to deal with the budget deficit. So to deal with here, another example for you of deal with. I told you it's a verb that we use very, very often. But understand here can be replaced with figure out. So we need to figure out how we're going to deal with the budget deficit. So to figure out, it's really the intellectual process of understanding the problem. And then you can take steps to rectify, to resolve the problem. But first, the first step is figuring it out, understanding what's causing the problem, and then deciding on some actions to move forward. Number 5, to look into. This means to investigate. You might see this with the police a lot, the police looking into the crime, etc. But in a business context, I'll give you an example. We haven't found the solution yet, but we are investigating it. Here you can replace investigate with look into. So we haven't found the problem yet, but we are looking into it. So here investigate actually sounds a little bit strange. Look into, it sounds much more natural. And it's easier to understand what you wanted to say. It's really a big improvement on the sentence if you can use look into in this type of sentence. So particularly if you don't have the response to a question that somebody asks you, you can use this. So somebody asks you in a meeting, what's the situation on this project? You can say, I don't know exactly now, but I will look into it. It's another way you can use it. So again, a very, very useful phrasal verb. Number 6, to find out. To find out means to discover or learn some new information. For example, in a conversation, person A could say, did you know John got fired? And person B can respond, yes, I discovered yesterday. But it would be better if they responded, yes, I found out yesterday. Much more natural, again, achieving the goal of sounding more natural, more fluent, more like a native speaker. 7, to call off. This one means to cancel. We have unfortunately been forced to cancel tomorrow's seminar. And you can replace that again with call off. So we have unfortunately been forced to call off tomorrow's seminar. Exactly the same meaning here, but again, just increasing your vocabulary, sounding more natural. Last but not least on the list, number 8 is to hold up. Now, in this context, it means to delay. It can be a little bit confusing for people because people are often already familiar with the word to hold up in the context of with a gun in a bank. But no, it's a completely different context here. This just means to delay. Maybe it's a little bit more informal to say hold up than to delay. But still in a business context, as I've discussed in previous videos, you have different levels of formality inside business. You have, maybe if you're speaking to a customer, then maybe you can say delay. But if you're speaking to your colleague on another site, then you can say hold up and it will sound more natural. So as an example, we have been waiting 6 weeks for the products we ordered. What is delaying the order? You change this and say, what is holding up the order? Okay, just to give you some alternatives, you can use this one also as a noun. You could say a delay, and here you can say a hold up. They're synonyms. Again, you can interchange these. So once again, giving you some more variety. So that's it. These are my 8 top ones that I think that in most business contexts you can use. You probably use the synonyms for these fairly regularly. So this gives you an opportunity. Try and make a list or something, keep it on your desk, and proactively try to use this. If you don't use them, you'll never remember them and they'll never become part of your vocabulary. So break it down into bite-sized pieces, focus on these 8. Once you've mastered these 8, you can then look to add other ones, etc. Buy a book or get back in touch, and I'm sure I'll make another video in the future to add to this list. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for your time. If you found the video interesting or useful, please consider subscribing and like the video, share with family and friends. Please get in touch with us at the Balkan School if you're interested in improving your language skills. We're here to help. We'd love to hear from you. That's it for today. See you next time, and in the meantime, take care. Bye bye.